I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Right.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. So everyone, welcome to Elevate Hacks. I'm so happy to see so many of you guys here in the opening ceremony, and I cannot wait to see what we all build this weekend. So I'm Uditi, and I'm the founder of Elevate Tech and the lead and sponsorships director here at Elevate Hacks, and I'll be presenting the opening ceremony. So, what is Elevate Tech? Elevate Tech is a nonprofit organization founded in oops, is a nonprofit organization founded in August 2020 with a mission to bridge the gender gap in tech and entrepreneurship. So far, we have hosted 2 coding bootcamps, multiple workshops, and social media campaigns. Our upcoming events include a high school research bootcamp and a 3-month-long project-based mentorship program, so stay tuned for both of them. And before we begin, I'd highly encourage everyone to change your Zoom background into an image like this, which is shared on Discord, since we will be taking pictures at the end of my presentation. Right, so what does the schedule look like for today? So now we're in the opening ceremony, and right after this, we're gonna have the opening keynote by Akshay Dinesh, which is gonna be Hackathons 101, making the best out of a virtual hackathon. After this, we're gonna have the team formation session by the Elevate Hacks organizing team. After that, for the rest of the day, you're free to find teammates, brainstorm ideas for your project, and start coding it. Super exciting. For Saturday and Sunday, this is the schedule, and it's available on the website too, so you don't need to worry about it from now. Next, I'd like to thank all of our sponsors so very much for making Elevate Hacks possible. Our sponsors include Jane Street, Magic Labs, Coom, Replit, Get XYZ, Cascade, Product Hunt, Balsamic, and Figma. You'll also be seeing workshops by Magic Labs and Coom tomorrow. And now to talk about our community partner, Black Remote Chi. So Black Remote Chi is a nonprofit organization dedicated to giving remote job opportunities to Black queer, trans queer individuals, trans women, and non-binary individuals. Elevate Black Remote Chi has given Elevate Hacks a custom price tag, which includes making a job board for Black Remote Chi. You can learn more about how the job board will work and the prizes included in the Black Remote Chi channel on our Discord. So before you start hacking, it's very important that everyone fills in the check-in form to be eligible to win prizes and swag, and so that we can divide you guys into factions, which we'll be talking about in just a minute. Next, you can find teams on the team formation channel. You can also ask questions about your project in the mentorship channels. Examples of questions include questions about ideating your project, finding the right technologies to implement your ideas, and having code bugs in your code. A huge shout out to all of our mentors who have volunteered their time this weekend to help us out at Elevate Hacks. And you can ask questions about the hackathon in the event questions channel on the Discord and also on the participants slide section on the dev post. Next, the team photo contest. This is super easy and super fun. With your team, just hop onto a Discord, Zoom, or Google Meet call and take a screenshot with all of your guys' cameras on and send them in the Discord. We'll randomly be picking 5 teams to win a surprise backpack. Lastly, to be eligible to get prizes, you must attend at least 2 workshops throughout the hackathon. And the way we'll be tracking this is at the end of every workshop, we're going to be sharing a QR code, which is linked to a Google form, and over there you have to fill it in to mark your attendance. And so, what are factions? Elevate Hacks has 4 factions: HTML and CSS, Python, Java, and Swift. The way this works is that the faction with the most amount of workshop attendances will be getting a free swag bag delivered to all of your houses for free. So make sure to attend as many workshops as you can. And now we're going to be taking a group photo. So I'm going to give you guys a minute to turn your cameras on and get your backgrounds. So I'm going to wait till 4:30. You don't have to have your cameras on. It's not compulsory, but it will be fun. And we have sent the backgrounds on the Discord too. I'm gonna wait for 1 more minute and then I'm gonna do the screenshots. I can send the backgrounds here to you since some of you guys cannot get it. Wait, here we go. It's the hacker background.png. Okay, so a lot of people have their cameras on, and I'm gonna go ahead and take the pictures. Now there are 5 slides, so you're gonna have to smile for a good minute. Okay. Awesome, thank you guys so much. And now I'm gonna give the floor to Akshay to present her workshop, Hackathons 101.
Alrighty, awesome. Hello. Well, it's super awesome to be here. Thank you guys so much for inviting me. I'm excited for you guys to embark on this journey. And if this is your first hackathon, it's going to be such a fun and exciting experience. And I'm so glad that you're here, and you're probably going to go off and do amazing things after this. So I will share my screen and kind of walk through kind of my journey. Pardon all my tabs. Cool. So I guess today we'll kind of cover just a little bit about kind of my journey into tech and a little bit about me, and then also a little bit on how to build a cool product, which hopefully should be useful for hackathons. So yeah, I guess like really quickly, we could do like a round of very quick introductions. I don't know if you guys have already done introductions, but maybe if you just want to put in the chat a little bit about where you're calling in from, and what year you are in school, or just like a couple words about yourself, and I'd love to get to know you guys better. this is so cool. We have so many people from all over the world. Wow, okay, this is awesome. So awesome to hear. Well, I'm currently in California, but I am originally from New Jersey. And it's so cool to see that we have people here who are early on in high school. We have people in college. So that's super, super awesome. I started going to hackathons when I was first in high school, and it was like the most incredible experience for me to basically learn about technology and get excited about the world of tech. So I'm going to step in and start talking about some of my journey. And yeah, so a little bit more about me. Like I said, I am originally from New Jersey, which is where I was, where I spent most of my like childhood and high school. And then I went to a bunch of hackathons in high school, which is how I sort of got into tech. And so I thought I wanted to be a software engineer. And I came over to the West Coast to Stanford to study computer science here. And so I was studying computer science at Stanford when I essentially actually left college a year and a half ago to start a company called Ladder. And I'll talk more about that as well and the journey there. So my time at Stanford was really, really awesome. I like made a ton of friends, did a few software engineering and computer science internships, learned a little bit more about the world of computer science. But I ended up leaving to start a company. So my journey, I guess, starts way before then. So I first learned code when I was grade. I just stumbled upon some like online tutorials to learn Java, which was the first programming language I learned. And so I started learning how to code in Java, but I just couldn't understand why it was important. And it was like really boring and hard for me to understand. I was like trying to do these like for loops and if statements and just trying to learn how to code. And it didn't click for me. I didn't really enjoy it and it felt really frustrating. So it wasn't until I started building my first mobile app that I started to realize how powerful coding could be as a tool to make the types of products that people enjoy today. And so for me, it was actually when I started going to hackathons that I started realizing how important and how awesome it is to know how to code and actually build products that impact so many people's lives. Like all the tools that we're using today are all built with code. Like the Zoom call that we're on right now, Zoom was built with code. And all the websites, Instagram, Facebook, all the applications that we love and use today, if you learn how to code, you have the power to be able to build those types of products yourself. And for me, I honestly was mostly self-taught. There weren't that many high school computer science classes at my school. So a lot of how I learned how to code was really just looking up YouTube tutorials. So I think for me, the best way to learn how to pick up a new language or learn a new skill is really just to go on YouTube and search up like how to make a tutorial website in whatever language I'm trying to learn. And then I would find a website tutorial and then I would basically just follow that tutorial and go through the entire like 30-minute video, redo whatever they did, and along the way try to learn the steps of how they did it so I could replicate it myself. And then I would go on and build my next thing. So that's kind of how I learned how to code initially. And I started going to hackathons when I was in 9th grade, and it was the most incredible exposure for me. So my first hackathon was in New Jersey. It was Code Day. And I showed up. It was initially very intimidating. I didn't know anybody there, and I actually found out about hackathons because I was at a math competition and I saw a sticker for Major League Hacking. So it was this sticker right here on somebody's laptop. And then I became interested and I looked it up on Google and I realized that there were these things called hackathons. So I signed up for the first one that I found. And Major League Hacking is an awesome resource as well. It's mlh.io if you want to find out other hackathons and go and sign up for them in your area or online as well. So definitely check them out. And so I went to my first hackathon. It was just me. I didn't have any friends there or any teammates there. And so I showed up and I walk in, I realized like it was just mostly like a bunch of teenage boys. I felt really, really weird being there. I didn't have any friends. I was a total stranger to everyone. And so I almost walked back out and left. And my mom was right behind me and she's like, no. We drove 30 minutes to get here. You're going to go. I'm going to pick you up tomorrow. You're going to be fine. So she pushed me in the door. And I found the only table of other girls that I saw at the event. And I just went and I sat with them and I decided I was just going to be on their team. And so they were nice enough to include me. And then we ended up building a really tiny website. We built a personality quiz. where you could take a short quiz and it would tell you what personality type you were. So very, very simple project, and there were so many issues with it. It was not the best website. I didn't even know how to make websites. And so I just ended up staying up the entire night with a mentor, trying to understand how I could build this thing. And we finally got it working near the end. It still wasn't the best project, so we definitely did not win whatsoever, but it was a really fun experience. And the adrenaline of like having to figure things out and being able to build an entire project in just one weekend was so thrilling to me that I started going to more and more. And so I got a little bit addicted, and I went to over 45 hackathons since then and picked up so many different skills along the way. And obviously at first I was really bad at them, so I was just like trying to learn how to make things for the first time, and things weren't going very well. But eventually I got enough practice at pitching and demoing my products and coming up with ideas and then building them really quickly that I started winning a bunch of them too. And I also started learning all these different types of skills. So every hackathon I went to, I would always tell myself, okay, I'm gonna try to learn one new type of skill at this hackathon. And so I ended up building Android apps, iOS apps, websites, hardware projects using Arduinos, and I also got really into virtual and augmented reality, and so on and so on. The list goes on of all these different skills that I was able to learn over time as I kept going to these events. Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I think
okay, cool. Okay, my bad. I was just in the chat and I wasn't sure. Okay, awesome. Cool. So one of the most like really momentous hackathons that I went to, and the one that was, I think, really changed the course of my high school career, was the TechCrunch Disrupt Hackathon. And so this was a hackathon that was in New York City at the time, and I'm from New Jersey, and you weren't even supposed to attend if you were under 18. And I was at the time a high school junior, so I think I was like 17 or so. And so I show up to this hackathon, and at the time I had been to maybe a few already, and I was really excited by virtual reality. And so I brought my VR headset that I like used my hackathon winning, like the money that I had like earned from winning another hackathon, I spent it on buying a VR headset so I could go to more hackathons. And I brought it with this hackathon. And my friends and I, we basically were able to create a virtual reality app that could diagnose behavioral disorders like ADD and ADHD, using these like interactive exercises and simulations to try to simulate what doctors would do in a doctor's office. And so I was able to build this project in 24 hours. And again, there were so many problems. It was not an easy journey. In the beginning, we had no idea how to make it. And I think halfway through, we basically just told ourselves we were going to quit. We weren't even just going to finish the project, but we like got it together at like 6 a.m. in the morning, tried to hack together the last little final pieces. We actually ended up being the first people to present, so we were super nervous about it, and being in front of like hundreds of these like much older people who are like startup founders and engineers who are way more qualified than us. And somehow we were able to win in first place at the end of the day. And I think it was like probably in part due to just like how crazy our idea was, and the fact that we were doing VR and we were like the youngest people there. And so it was really awesome. And we were published on TechCrunch in a news article, and we had a little bit of other press attention. It was really fun. We even got to fly to California to visit Silicon Valley for an award that we had won in relation to the hackathon. And then eventually it kind of ended up like, we didn't end up continuing to pursue the project afterwards, and it just kind of faded away. It was too much of a difficulty to actually get it in the hands of patients. So that was the first big hackathon project that kind of affected my career in a large way. The second one that was really impactful to me was Pen Apps, which is a hackathon at the University of Pennsylvania, and they do accept high schoolers as well. So would definitely recommend you apply. And there I was looking at augmented reality. So I was using these Microsoft HoloLens headsets, and they had a bunch of the hackathon, so we were just borrowing one. And so we ended up creating an app at that hackathon that translated sign language from spoken language. And so that was also a really fun project, and we somehow ended up winning that hackathon as well. And that one was so incredible because it actually sent us to Facebook headquarters in Silicon Valley because they had this thing where if you won any of the regional hackathons across these different universities, you would basically be able to like compete in a national championships hackathon sort of deal at Facebook. And so that was my first time like visiting a tech company and trying to, and like really getting a sense of what Silicon Valley is like. It was the most incredible experience ever. And at that point I was like, okay, I want to work in tech. I want to be in California. I want to go and hang out over here. And so kind of at the same time as I was attending these hackathons, as I said, the first one that I had been to, there really weren't that many girls at that first event. And so I felt very, very intimidated. And you guys are in like the awesome environment of already being at a hackathon that's so female friendly that you already have this incredible support system. But for me, it felt very lonely being one of the very few girls at most of these hackathons. And so me and a friend ended up starting a nonprofit called Girls Make Apps, where we started organizing hackathons that were oriented towards young women, as well as other workshops and classes and programming for girls in middle school, high school, and college to learn about technology, but also social tech entrepreneurship. So how to build products that actually had a positive social impact. And so after that is when I kind of like, we've worked on that nonprofit for a couple of years and had this incredible amount of impact and taught over 600 girls how to code in all these various languages, and a bunch of people launched products on the App Store. And then that's when I came over to college and I went to Stanford for a couple of years. And so while I was at Stanford, I ended up working in a few tech companies. So I worked at Bloomberg in New York City, and I was working on a web application for their customers. And then I worked at Microsoft on the Microsoft Teams product, where I was building a chat application for iOS. And then I worked at Kitty Hawk, which is actually a flying car startup. So they build these vehicles that can fly in the air and can transport people from place to place. So I got really interested in transportation working there. And then actually the first place I worked in high school was actually at Built by Girls, and you guys should check them out. They have a mentorship platform called Wave, where they match you up with industry mentors who are already working in various professions in tech, who are really excited to mentor you and coach you on how to get your footing in the tech industry as well. So definitely check that out too. And after a couple of years at Stanford, I kind of realized that even though I was working in tech and I felt really empowered to be able to build products for people, I felt like I was still building a very, very tiny piece of somebody else's vision, especially at these larger companies like Microsoft, where there are thousands of employees and hundreds of different products across the company. And I was contributing to a tiny little piece of that huge world of all the things that they were doing at the company. And for me, I wanted to have a larger impact and sort of bring my own vision to reality. And so that's when I started my first company called Ladder. And Ladder was essentially a professional community platform for Gen Z. So there are all these communities that college students can join, and it was oriented towards college students. And you would join them and be able to engage in discussions with other people and ask questions from mentors and get advice and things like that. And that ended up going really well. So I worked on that for about a year and a half and scaled the team up to like about 14 employees, raised a bunch of funding for the startup as well, and had tens of thousands of students on the platform. So that was an amazing learning experience for me. But at the end of the day, the company didn't end up working out in my favor for my personal reasons. And so I ended up actually leaving and starting another company, which I'm still currently in the process of starting. So still in the very, very early stages there. And I'm really excited about that too. And so now I'm going to transition a little bit over into kind of like the product lifecycle of how to build a product and what to be focusing on when you're coming up with an idea for the first time. So for me, I think a really good framework is the design thinking framework. And there's a ton of content online about design thinking and how this works. I think it was originally like the framework was created at Stanford as well. And design thinking is sort of just this way of thinking about how do you come up with products that people really enjoy and people really want to use. So first, sort of the first step is to empathize. So put yourself kind of in the shoes of your user or your customer. Who do you want to build something for? And start thinking about what is life like for those kinds of people? What are the things that they're doing? What are the things that they're struggling with? So once you start to empathize with them, you're able to basically define a problem. And that's this next step over here, is to define. So you're in the shoes of this end user, and now you kind of understand, okay, I can tell that this user has a particular problem. So now you've defined that problem, and you've kind of like kept it in your mind. Once you've defined that problem, the next step here is to ideate a solution. So as all of us are really smart and creative thinkers, we're sort of able to put our technology skills and our brains to use and think about, okay, I've seen that there's this problem that exists with my user. Now I also know that this other technology exists that might be able to help them and solve that problem. So you ideate that solution, and the next thing is you actually test it. So you prototype it by building the simplest and smallest way that's possible for you to come up with an idea and actually build it out. And for me, that sometimes means you don't even necessarily need to write code. Sometimes a Google form is enough, or sometimes a simple Squarespace, like Squarespace or Wix website is enough. So whatever small piece of solution that you can create to prototype it and actually get it out into the hands of those users, that's when you get to the testing process. And there are these steps along the way because it's not a linear process. It's something that's dynamic and always changing. So for example, when you are prototyping a solution, you learn and you decide that maybe you can create a different prototype, or maybe the prototype you started with wasn't the right one. And then you test. And the way you test is by giving that prototype to your users and asking them, is this going to solve your problem? And what's your feedback on this? And then again, if they give you feedback that shows that it's not maybe the right solution, then you go back to the ideation stage and you try again. And sometimes even when you're testing, you realize, oh, maybe I wasn't empathizing with the user enough and I didn't really understand their problems. So you might want to start back there. Or maybe you defined the problem incorrectly and you want to start back there. So this is kind of like a very circular process, but by doing this process, you get to an end goal that's way better than the one that you started with. If you just sat at a whiteboard and you decided, okay, I'm going to come up with a hackathon project on this whiteboard, it's a lot harder than if you are actually able to come up with a user persona and define that problem and ideate and test for them. So that's kind of how I would go around the process of ideating and building a project for the hackathon. And I will skip this slide. Yes, okay, so that's basically all I have in terms of slides for just like how to come up with an idea and build a project. The other thing that I think is really, really important is actually creating an amazing pitch. And so for the hackathon at the end, you'll probably want to like demo your product. And in addition to demoing your product, what's really important is crafting an amazing story so that people can understand why your product is useful. Who is your user? Because even though you went through this process of going through the whole customer journey or the user journey and empathizing with them and defining their problems, the person that's listening to you pitch, they didn't go through that process themselves. So they won't understand how the user feels and why they need this unless you explain it to them in a really amazing way. And so I would actually recommend using this framework to actually also create your story for your pitch. So actually like start by sort of like defining who is the user. This is kind of like what the user is dealing with. This is their problems and their pain points. And so we decided to build this solution for them. This is how our solution works. Show them your demo. And then at the end, maybe conclude with kind of like why you think this is going to be really impactful, or how many people you think could be impacted, and why it's an amazing product. So that's kind of how I would structure your pitch. And I thought it might be helpful to maybe also just do a little bit of brainstorming. So for the last few minutes, sort of like we can kind of get together and see if anybody has any ideas that they've been thinking about before the hackathon that they want to just like get out there and brainstorm. And this is also kind of a good way to do some team formation. If you hear kind of like an idea that someone else is bouncing around, you really like it, message them afterwards on the Discord and see if they want to be a part of your team. So I'll pause there and encourage you to step up with some ideas. No worries if it's not well formed or anything like that. It's totally fine. This is just like literally just brainstorming and putting it out there. Time zone schedule converter. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that, Sanskriti? Okay, no worries.
All right. By the time you guys are thinking of ideas, you can also send in questions in the chat for Aksha, and I'll be asking them.
Okay, and while you guys are brainstorming, I gotta go grab my laptop charger, so I'll be right back too.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, someone actually had a question for you to kind of give a quick pitch of your startup ladder, if you want to do that.
Yes. Cool. Yeah, sure, I can do that. So the pitch that we gave for Ladder was, and I might not be doing this perfectly because I don't have the best memory, but so the pitch that we gave for Ladder was we essentially started by saying that I think like 20 million people are members of Gen Z, and they're graduating from college and entering the workforce, and a lot of these people are living their lives online, and people are more and more spending time online. And for those people who are graduating from college, a lot of them are looking for their first job or their first career in the workforce, and they're trying to use these different platforms like LinkedIn to be able to find a job. And so and in their experiences on LinkedIn, after talking to a bunch of these people, we realized that they don't really enjoy LinkedIn, and that a lot of the complaints they had were that they were applying to a bunch of jobs and never hearing back, or they were connected to a bunch of people in their network, but they didn't really know them very well. And their feed wasn't really helping them much either. The things that they needed advice on, things like how to make a resume and where to apply to jobs and how to pass the interviews, they weren't really getting that out of LinkedIn. And so we decided that there was clearly an opportunity here to be able to provide people the amount of value that they were looking for that they just weren't getting on existing platforms. And so seeing also the rise of online communities recently, we built this community platform that combines, one, the best communities for people to join and meet other people that they're interested in their same industries and same career topics. And then also actually create more meaningful connections with those people. So starting from the communities, getting to know people more deeply and becoming actually closer as friends and sticking together throughout their careers. And then 3, creating the best content so that they actually get the advice and resources that they need to get to the next level in their career. And so that's kind of how we framed like the problem and solution. Then we talked about other stuff like business model and market and stuff, but I'll leave all of that stuff out. Okay. Awesome. Well, let's see some of these ideas. I really like some of these. Let me scroll up. Let's see. Cool. Oh, okay. Awesome. So Haley has an idea that's a job application portal that scrambles the applicant's name so that most of the bias is blocked out. I love that idea. I think there are some companies that are trying to do similar things, but I think that would be a really, really good idea for sure. So I'm in love. I think that would be super cool. And even blocking out like the name, even honestly, there's a lot of bias even in like what university people attend or like what their race or gender is. If you could block out some of the bias information, that'd be super cool. Let's see. Okay, so someone asked, can you walk us through one of your previous projects in a hackathon? Yes. Well, I guess what exactly are you looking for me to walk through? Because I think I already talked through some examples in my slides. So what are some specific pieces that you'd like me to talk about?
Yeah, I guess a good question could be like, in your hackathon project, what do you think is like the most important thing you should focus on? Like, should it be the actual code, design, presentation?
Yeah, well, it's really a combination of everything, but in my opinion, the most important part is your pitch at the end, your demo, and making that the most impactful demo and really understanding why this thing is so important and all the impressive work that you did over the weekend and presenting that in the best possible way. I think that's actually the most important part.
Okay, yeah, and another question that someone did DM me was your kind of journey through like leaving a school like Stanford to pursue a startup, which is kind of considered more risky. Could you like tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. So for me, I knew that entrepreneurship was something I was always interested in. So starting in high school, I knew that I eventually wanted to maybe be an entrepreneur. And so it was really just a matter of time. And I thought that it was going to be maybe after I left college or after I graduated and had a couple of jobs, maybe I would try to start a company. But it just so happened that when the pandemic happened, a bunch of people lost their internships because of COVID. And so there became so many people who were just struggling to find a job or find an internship that I started building these smaller side projects to help people with their careers. And those side projects ended up going really, really viral and got a ton of traction. And so that's actually why I started the company Ladder, is because I was inspired by a lot of this demand that was coming from people who were just struggling to find out what they wanted to do in their careers.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Nina has an idea too, like about an app that connects students with alumni and categorizes it with clubs, majors, etc.
That sounds super cool. I love that idea. It's kind of like a mentorship matching platform, but you also have that school connection. I think it's super cool too. Okay, let me also go through some of these other ideas. So Jordan has an idea for an app that teaches kids about nutrition. I love that. I think like a lot of kids don't understand about nutrition, especially when if you're in middle school or high school, the school cafeterias are really not like the most healthy environments. And so helping younger children understand what they should be putting in their bodies is honestly, I think, really valuable. We have another idea that's a website for people to record their diaries, contains date, mood, etc. Yep, that's super cool too. I think I would also try to implore you to try to understand what exactly is the problem that you're solving. Like, is the problem that people have physical diaries and they want it to be digital, or is the problem that they're not journaling enough? And try to understand what exactly the problem is, and that way it'll also inform what your product looks like and what you're designing inside the experience. Cool. Okay, we have another idea that's an app or extension that shows the most common types of feeds shown in different social media. Stats like likes, comments, etc. might help businesses. I'm not sure I entirely understand what that means. I'm assuming this is some sort of like maybe showing analytics from different social media accounts for a company. Is that sort of what it's doing? Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah, I actually think that's extremely useful. Like even when I was doing Ladder, and we had a bunch of social media accounts set up for the company. We had LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, all these different social media accounts, but there was no one place for us to just get all of the statistics and analytics on how all those social media accounts are doing in one place. So we had to keep switching between all these different websites. So I think that's actually a really, really creative and cool idea. So I love that. Let's see. We have an app for potential college students to connect with current students and alumni to figure out what the university was like. Yep, love that too. For me, when I was applying to college, this was a huge pain point, and I ended up having to talk to a bunch of people through like Facebook groups or friends of friends. But if you're not well connected, it can definitely be a big challenge. So I love that too. Let's see, helping teens understand climate change in their area. Yeah, that's super cool too. I guess like, is that more focused around just like understanding how bad the effects of climate change are, or do you want to also help them like take action and actually improve the climate change that's going on in their neighborhood? Both. Okay, even better. That's awesome. Super duper cool. Cool. We have one for an app for people to socialize more and stay fit and spread awareness about pollution and global warming, deforestation, and rapid spread of COVID. That's awesome. I love that idea too. I'm assuming those are two separate ideas. They seem really different, but both of them seem really important. We have one for connecting future university students with people in dorms. Oh, I love that for sure as well. I wish, although I would, not every university actually lets you choose your roommates. So when I came to college, my freshman year, I was matched with totally random roommates and I wasn't allowed to choose. And then my sophomore year, I was allowed to choose my roommate. But I think for a lot of the universities where you do get to choose your roommates, people are just, they have no idea who they should room with and they end up like just being totally stuck. So I love the idea of some kind of matching that puts people together. Cool. Awesome. And then it seems like we have a question that came in about running nonprofits in high school, how to maximize impact. That is a really, really big and heavy question and has a lot of things to unpack within there. So I guess I can try to start by just saying, like, I think what's really helpful is honestly to have a goal for what you're trying to accomplish with the nonprofit. Like, kind of have a personal goal for why am I starting this? What's really important to me? Who are the exact people that I want to help and impact? And once you kind of have a better understanding of who your target demographic is that you're trying to support, then you can kind of get deeper and try to find those people. So. And also, I think another thing is, honestly, the same way that you build a tech product or a company, the same way in a nonprofit, you really want to understand, like, what exactly is their problem? Like, is it that they're not getting enough exposure to something, or there's not enough awareness for something, or do people need to donate to something? Is there a lack of funding? Really try to pinpoint what exactly that problem is, and then go in and try to help that problem in whatever ways that you can. And another thing that helped me with building my nonprofit is finding really amazing partners who can help you. And I think one of the challenges of running a nonprofit is that you don't usually have a lot of funding. And so you have to sort of bootstrap everything and then figure that out. But in a lot of ways, you actually can get people to sort of donate and help out in ways that benefit them as well. So for my nonprofit, we had company sponsors that came in and help support our events, and in return they would get tons of amazing, talented women candidates for their jobs and career opportunities at their company. So there are usually ways that you can bring people together in useful ways. Cool. We have one that is a question. Okay, where did you pitch for funding for your nonprofit? Was a lot of it your money in the beginning? No. So actually, I was part of an organization called NCWIT, which is NCWIT. It's the National Center for Women in Information Technology, and they have this grant called Aspire IT, where like young people who are starting programs or initiatives to support the education of other young women in tech, they would fund them with these small grants. So the first thing I did was I applied for funding through that grant program. And then once I got that grant funding, I kind of got my first couple events off and running. And then for pitching companies, I think I just literally found like the emails of the recruiting teams from like the company websites. And then I would just like cold email them and ask them if they would be willing to sponsor my hackathon. So honestly, it just started as simple as that. Cool. And then we have some app ideas here. We have app for awareness on small businesses. That's awesome. I think that would have been really helpful during the pandemic. An app for college where you can join and apply for clubs and societies. That's actually super awesome too. Like even today when I came to Stanford and I had to join a bunch of clubs, it was literally just like a bunch of spreadsheets all over, and I kept losing track of what clubs I had signed up for. They forgot who I was, so it was a very difficult process for sure. Cool. Okay, so I have one. Here's an idea for collecting students to form study groups or get a study buddy. That's awesome. I love that idea as well. And then we have a question here that came in for advice for high schoolers interested in entrepreneurship. Okay, so there's a bunch of kind of like summer programs and things out there for high schoolers to do to learn more about entrepreneurship, and that's what I ended up doing. I did this program called MIT Launch, which is now called LaunchX. And that was really useful for me to just like understand kind of like how to make a business model and how to think about even like forming a company and how to create revenue and things like that. That was actually really helpful for me. But in general, I think the way to pursue entrepreneurship is to really just go out and do it and like try and fail and see how things go. And like pretty much any hackathon project that you start, you just test it and you just put it out there. And if you get enough traction, it eventually becomes a venture. So I would just try to like go out and do these things and don't necessarily feel intimidated not to try. Cool. We have another awesome idea here to help people who are feeling anxious with breathing exercises. I love that idea. I wish I had that. Cool. I think you guys have a lot of awesome ideas here, and I would totally encourage you to find out the names of these people, message each other on Zoom or on Discord, and try to form teams and work together. So thank you to everyone who submitted an idea. It's definitely really scary, and I'm super proud of you for doing it.
Thank you for coming here. It was so insightful to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Great.
Cool.
And
Well, it was so nice to talk to everyone. And yeah, I wish you all the best of luck with the hackathon.
And I'll share, if you're comfortable after this, is it okay if I'll share your LinkedIn so that these people can connect with you later?
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Great. And next, Belle C, our community partner from Command Tech, will be talking a bit about their high school clubs. So